Hey people of the VC, it's Andy Cloudy Mulder, and this is the second part of my Music for Nations collection video. In this one we're going to cover catalogue numbers 21 to 40, or the ones that I have in that range, so another 20 albums, 21 to 40, of which I have 15 of them. Very similar to the last one. I will show you any inner sleeves that they have. If I don't show an inner sleeve and I don't show a record, it's because the one, there isn't an inner sleeve, and two, the record just has the standard Music for Nations font on it, nothing fancy at all. If you want to know what that looks like, check out the previous video, of which I'll put together a playlist now and put a link above, so you can get up to speed if you missed that first one. So Music for Nations number 21 was a Japanese band, Earthshaker, with Fugitive. Earthshaker are a really good Japanese band. They weren't quite as big as Loudness, and some of the songs are in Japanese, but it's kind of catchy Japanese. You find yourself singing along even though you haven't got a clue what they're singing about. Just a tiny Music for Nations 21 catalogue at the top and a small flag waver in the bottom. I actually had this copy from John Vinylizer, so it's for VCLT. I have a Japanese pressing of this as well. As you can see, slight variation on the label where they've got the band name in the Earthshaker logo. So that's 21. I don't have 22 and 23. 22 is Disillusion by Loudness. It's not rare, but it is getting harder to find. And 23 is by Alaska, which is Heart of the Storm. It's cheap as chips and it's readily available online. I've just not got around to picking it up yet. Just about everything I'm going to show in this video is going to be 1984. Quite a lot of releases here. Music for Nations 24 was the my favourite Kiss album. That's Wendy O. Williams. Wow. So this was produced by Gene Simmons and has basically most of Kiss at the time, I guess, playing on it. I'm not the biggest Kiss fan. I don't mind them, but I don't go out and buy their stuff. But this is very, I kind of guess, Kiss sounding, but with female vocals, with Wendy Williams that was in the Plasmatics. Guest stars on here, so Paul Stanley plays on here, Eric Carr plays, I think Ace Frehley, Ace Frehley's on one of them as well, and a chap called Reginald Van Helsing plays bass guitar throughout, and I believe that is actually Gene Simmons playing on here. So it's very sort of commercial Kiss sounding. You can tell the influence that Gene Simmons has had on this album, but it's enjoyable nonetheless. Nothing exciting about the label or the inner. Music for Nations 25 is the second Music for Nations release and second album of the 80s by Battle Axe. This is Power from the Universe. We've got a nice fancy blue flag bearer this time, and a prominent MFN25. Love this album cover. I love that you can tell the band are really trying to get power from the universe with those hand gestures. Killer stuff. A lot more polished than their first album. Very, very good. Cover for this one is not in great shape. I did have to pay more than I normally like for the record, but it's a killer record. I'm glad I finally managed to drag down a copy. So yeah, Music for Nations 25. MFN 26, Tank. Again, 1984. This is their fourth album and the second one that they released on the Music for Nations label, and this is the first album after the Brabs brothers left to be replaced by Cliff Evans on guitar and Graham Crallan on drums. There we go. Nice large red flag bearer on this one, Music for Nations 26. Again, nothing fancy about the packaging inside. Really good Tank album. Their last good Tank album, I guess you could call it. Music for Nations 27 needs no introduction. Metallica, Ride the Lightning. Now, if you remember in my last video where I showed Kill 'Em All, it pained me to announce that I found out I had a counterfeit copy. This is very much an original, a first press, and you can tell that because there's no barcode on the label, and the record has beige labels and no country mentioned on the pressing. So we've got the Metallica logo on the record, and this one does come with a inner sleeve with a yellow and black Music for Nations motif up here, and lyrics. And yeah, the back cover we've got a light blue Music for Nations badge, MFN27. A lot of people's favourite Metallica album, and you can't really argue with that. Music for Nations 28 is Merciful Fate, Don't Break the Oath. That's one I probably will struggle to own. It's a £30 plus album now, and I've never ever seen a copy of that around, and when it's on Discogs and eBay it goes for a premium. So that may be a gap for some time. MFN29 is The Rods. This is Let Them Eat Metal. Their third studio album, but the first release they put out on Music for Nations. First studio album, they had the Rods Live, which I showed in the last vid on Music for Nations as well. Just looking at the chaps, we have a smallish flag bearer here now, and a Music for Nations 29 in the top corner. You know, the inner sleeve has got one of my favourite inner sleeve pictures of any release, and this was clearly Gary Bardolino, this chap here, clearly his idea. Now Gary obviously looks after himself and works out, so I'm sure when he suggested this photo, you know, he was all over it, looking nice and buff, whereas poor Carl Kennedy at the end is decidedly hairy, not looking his best. Whereas old Gary looks lovely, very buff. There we go. Lyrics, and the label has a nice big The Rods band logo on both sides. Music for Nations 30. This is the next compilation album that Music for Nations put out, showcasing bands on the label. Now I can't really play this. It sounds horrendous. It's really bad shape. It's got superficial scratches on there. It's not scratched. It doesn't jump. It's just the crackling is so loud. And I've washed it many times. I've even tried the glue technique on here, but it's just an album that's obviously been played to death. So I will be looking out for another copy of this. So red flag bearer, Music for Nations 30. Bands on here. We've got Man of War from MFN19, Exciter from 17, Anthrax from 14, Earthshaker from 13, Halloween from 15, Hellion, sorry, not Halloween, Loudness from 22, Creeping Death, Metallica 27, Hellstar, MFN 20, The Rods, Hurricane from The Rods Live, MFN 16. Tsunami appears on here. Now, if you recall in the last video where I showed the first Music for Nations compilation, Tsunami were conspicuous by their absence because they were the only album previous to that release that didn't feature a track, but they've brought it back here. So Tsunami on here, another Earthshaker track, and an Alaska track. So that's Hell Comes to Your House, and might have been easier if I actually showed this instead of reading out all the bands, but these are all the albums that they've taken In fact, this is the full catalogue of Music for Nations at the time, just about. There we go, so that's MFN30 on the home straight now. 31, Wasted, the Wasted EP. So this is Pete Way's band after, I guess, leaving, I'm going to say UFO, but I think he was probably in Fastway briefly before this. It's a 5-track EP. Music for Nation 31, nice big red flag bearer. This is a great EP. In fact, The Price You Pay is one of my favourite songs on here. This is something I had on tape back in the day. This copy I got as a VCLT from Chris, Final Transmission, some time ago, which is very kind. I already had a copy, but it was an upgrade, so I passed on my other copy since then. And we have the Wasted logo on the LP. MFN32 is another compilation, and this is a bit of a strange one. So this is strictly for connoisseurs, and as you can tell from the cover, it's made up of US and Canadian bands, most of which never got deals in the UK, and certainly weren't on Music for Nations label itself. The blurb on the back talks about, you know, bands that hadn't quite made it. This is a very different sounding album from everything else on Music for Nations. So this is mostly tracks from the late 70s, and it has a very 70s hard rock feel to it, which isn't my favourite kind of music. Bands you might have heard from on here: Joe Perry, Angel, Stars, Legs Diamond, who did actually release an album on MFM later, Moxie. They're the bands I'd heard of before, but not really that familiar with them. There's a track listing if you can see. Sides 3 and 4, it's not really coming across. Sides 3 and 4 are the strongest. It's okay. It's nothing I'll particularly play. This is very much a filler for the Music for Nations collection. Not really my style of music, but still 1 or 2, 3 good tracks on there. Happy to have it. Next two are gaps, so 33 and 34. 33 is TKO In Your Face. Again, it's not expensive and it's readily available online. I just haven't got around to picking it up. And 34 is an album by Jack Starr, Out of the Darkness. Not somebody I'm that familiar with, to be honest with you. Again, it's not expensive and it's readily available online, so if I find it cheaply, it will come into the collection. MFN35, we're going back to Earthshaker. This is an interesting EP, Tokyo. It contains two studio tracks and 3 live tracks. We have our flag bearer with MFN35. It's a nice little EP. This was only ever released on Music for Nations vinyl, so glad to have that. That was a recent acquisition. MFN36, a band that featured in the first video, probably the only progressive band that's on Music for Nations. This is Twelfth Night, and this is a studio album, Art and Illusion. Again, it's proggy. It's mostly forgettable from my viewpoint. The live album MFN18 was much more enjoyable. There's 5 tracks on here. It's much longer than an EP if I remember, but I've got a light blue Music for Nations man up here, and the MFN36 at the top on this one. Yeah, not really my cup of tea. Not something I'll play much. Let's cover that. Lyric sheet. But not metal at all. MFN37, back with Earthshaker. This is Midnight Flight. This is a really good album. I like this one. Again, I like Earth Shaker. They play really good kind of upbeat hard rock metal, slightly on the melodic side, but great nonetheless. We have our flag bearer down here at the bottom and our catalogue number top left. Funnily enough, the last release I showed, the first Fugitive, they had their Earth Shaker logo on the label, but the last two from them didn't for some reason. So probably, I don't know, maybe the first one didn't sell so much, but they had a couple more albums to do, so they went out on the cheap. No inner sleeve either to show for it. 38, probably the most well-known J-metal band to break it in the West, and that's Loudness. And this is the Thunder in the East. So this is actually from 1985. Yeah, so the last three are 1985, so mostly 1984 up to now. Pretty good condition. We have the MFN man and the catalogue number down in the corner. No inner sleeve, no fancy label, but a great album nonetheless. Last two, 39, Q5 Steal the Light. This was originally released in 1984 actually on the US with a completely different cover. I prefer the European pressing cover, but this was released in 1985 on Music for Nations. There's your flag bearer and the catalogue number. This is a brilliant album. It's kind of it's hard rock. There's some metal elements in there. It's a little bit AC/DC in places. Songs like Missing in Action, Steal the Light, the cover tune, Ain't No Way to Treat a Lady, Teenage Runaway, really good. I saw these in Edinburgh a few weeks back. Actually, they were really good live. There's only two of the original members, Evan Sheely and Jonathan Kay, but it was just really good gig. It was they only played 2 dates in the UK, I think London and Edinburgh, before moving on to Europe, because they had a massive following in Europe. There was hardly anyone at the show, but they put on a good show anyway. Had a bit of a chat with them after. Really nice guys. So yeah, Q5 MFN39, and they got a logo on the label as well. And last but certainly not least, MFN40, or last for this video anyway, is Rogue Mail with their debut album First Visit. This is really, Rogue Mail are really good. They're kind of it's a bit late for new wave of British heavy metal, but the new wave of British heavy metal inspired, bit of Motorhead in there, really kind of just good rocking metal. We have our Music Foundations man there, and a catalogue number in the bottom left. Crazy Motorcycle is Motorhead infused. First Visit is great. The whole of side 2 is just magic. I love it. Really good album. And we have in the sleeve, slight bit of wear on it. Great look for 85. And they also got a band logo on the record label. So that's a lot for this one. Part 3 will cover the releases I have between MFN41 and 60. The next 3 parts of 20, there's slightly less in them. I have more of the early catalogue numbers, but I'll show you what I have in an upcoming video. Thanks for watching. As usual, like, leave comments below, and I'll see you again soon. Cheers.